This Thrive Loud episode is brought to you by Hinge Consulting. Success on Amazon hinges on well-executed strategies. Contact Hinge Consulting to learn about total Amazon channel management and to see if your business has what it takes to grow over 300% over the next 12 months. That's Hinge Consulting at hingeconsulting.co.
I am not kidding when I say there is nothing better than spending a day at the beach. Listening to the sounds of the ocean, the wind blowing through my hair, the sweet smell of seawater. I could stay here for the rest of my life. Couldn't you? Thrive Loud listeners, it is summer and we are ready to thrive. So break out your sunnies and SPF 30, hit the grill, the beach, the pool, the boat, and while you're doing all of this, be sure you are cranking up Thrive Loud. This summer is packed full with 3 to 4 episodes a week, lots of awesome minisodes, and even more celebrities, entrepreneurs, CEOs, you name it, we got it. Make Thrive Loud your ultimate podcast destination all summer long. We promise you will not be disappointed. And stay tuned for new and exciting things coming soon to Thrive Loud.
Get ready to Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we bring you one of the more recognized authorities on entrepreneurship, leadership development, and the host of the business podcast, Smashing the Plateau. This individual has advised many expert business owners on how to grow their business and achieve stable, recurring revenue. Thrive Loud listeners, Smashing the Plateau every day himself, Mr. David Shriner-Cahn. David, how are you today?
I'm great, Lou. How are you?
I love having fellow podcast hosts on the show, but I specifically love having David on because David has been at this game for quite some time and is the true professional. I had the great fortune of being on his show, which I really enjoyed. And I think the Thrive Loud community is really going to like to hear what David is all about. A great guy, as I said in the opening here, with entrepreneurship and leadership development. And that's kind of where I want to lead into a little bit. Maybe you could share a little bit about, give the fast forward version, I guess, of your career and your journey. And that'll get us starting, and I will interject accordingly. Does that sound okay, Dave?
Sure, it sounds great. So first of all, like many people, my career and journey has been very nonlinear. I started my professional life as a chemical engineer. I was designing chemical plants. That lasted a few years, not super long. I went into the nonprofit space next, spent a couple decades there in leadership and management roles. And then I opened up my own business in 2006, where I've been helping others with leadership, as you mentioned, leadership issues, management issues. And in particular, in the last 4 years, I've been hosting my own podcast, Smashing the Plateau, and we've really zeroed in on a major issue for solopreneurs, which I believe is a growing segment of our economy, people that were the primary delivery engine for their core offering, which is how do you create consistent, stable, recurring revenue if you are in business for yourself without a huge team?
David, I want to ask this question because I'll jump right to the heart of it. And for those that get a chance to listen to Smashing the Plateau, it's great. The list of guests that have been on here have not only covered entrepreneurs, but have covered a tremendous range of industries. I guess what I love to dive into, you learn a lot in the seat that you're in. And I know this from speaking on this end, as we'll learn here today. You learn a lot about the unique things that business owners and entrepreneurs have done. What I'd love to hear is you hear lots of similar things that people do to be successful and trying to find that revenue. Can you highlight a couple of examples of guests you've had on the show and things that they've told you that at the moment of learning them, it almost shocked you because it was so unique and so different to what you normally would hear from top leaders and performers?
I'll give you one example, actually. John Lee Dumas, who's another podcaster, a very successful podcaster. He's really sort of put his stamp on the entrepreneurship podcasting world. And one of the things that he talked about was how much negative feedback he got from the people who were really close to him when he launched his show in 2012.
And what kind of negative? I'm just not having listened to that episode, which I'm going to have to rewind and go here. What were some of the examples of the negative feedback? This is from friends and family, or this is from just other
friends and family. So John, he's a veteran, so he was in the military. He came out of the military. He entered law school. He had, I think, if I remember correctly, he had completed a year of law school, and he just decided that it was not the right fit. And what he really wanted to do was be an entrepreneur. And he launched his podcast without really knowing how things were going to turn out, which is true for most entrepreneurs. We don't know how things are going to turn out. We have some ideas, and we have a lot of hope, and we generally have a good plan in place. But the people around him thought he was crazy, because he had done his public service, and he had completed the first year of law school, and he was on this trajectory for a great career as a lawyer, and he kind of gave the whole thing up to do what? Launch a podcast? Well, what's a podcast in 2012? And the rest is history. But he talked about what it was like to be hearing all that from the people who knew him and loved him best.
So, David, let's keep it on the topic of this. I assume you love putting together this show, because to do as many episodes as you have done at the time of this recording, I know we're in the 400s. Is that correct?
That's
and where
correct.
we are?
We've actually just cracked 400. So, yeah, I've been doing 2 shows a week for 4 years. So it's about 100 shows a year.
Let's go through the fun things for the listeners out here who get to listen to a lot of podcasts. What do you love the most about doing Smashing the Plateau? What do you prefer not to do that you can't stand about having to deal with it?
I actually really love meeting new people and just asking them about their lives. So being a podcaster is great, because it's really, I get to do this, as I said, 2 shows a week, 2 new people. I mean, there are some repeats, but mostly it's new people. And the stuff that you get to learn by hearing everybody's story is just phenomenal. And I don't have to schlep anywhere to do it. It's pretty remarkable.
It is true. Although I will tell you, I've done a lot of live in-person interviews, mostly to mix it up a little bit, or I've gotten a certain guest that it probably required me, getting off my butt and going to see them. So it does mix it up and deal with it, but it's a lot easier to do it remotely from the studio via the internet or telecom, whatever it might be. So there are certain facilities.
Correct. And I've done some live as well. I've actually done some shows at conferences, which is pretty cool. Where I'll interview a whole bunch of people, and we'll create an episode out of that.
Okay, so talk to me about what have been some of the downsides or maybe hassles around having to do the podcast.
Well, there's the, first of all, if you create an editorial calendar or a content calendar, as we call it, the structure is self-imposed. So the fact that we've done with my show 2 episodes a week for 4 years is totally self-imposed. It's the schedule I decided that I wanted our show to have, and we stuck with it. But the pressure is, if you tell people you're going to be delivering 2 shows a week, then you have to actually deliver 2 shows a week, which means
very true.
It's not just the conversation that you and I are having right now. It's all the back end stuff that has to happen. You need to line up the guest, and you need to schedule time to record. You need to make sure that all the equipment is working. You need to make sure things get edited properly, that they get posted on the internet properly, wherever you post them. So there is a production that's involved, and it's just like running any other kind of production or event. You need to be able to produce things when you say you're going to produce them. Otherwise, it doesn't say a whole lot about your quality or your integrity.
Yeah, I do agree. And it is challenging, because there are curveballs that are thrown in there, like, technical issues and whatnot. And like you said, I only wish that we did this a while ago. We actually did this thing called the Podcasters Forum, and we called it Great Guesting Techniques. We got 4 other podcast hosts together, and we talked about what guests need to know about going on a show. And it became almost like a technical show, because a lot of, microphones or headphones or finding a quiet room even, or rooms that didn't sound like the sound was bouncing off like you're inside of a gymnasium. I actually think someone one time tried to do an episode inside of a racquetball courtroom, and I am not kidding. But you could find all these ridiculous headaches, and you wish that everyone knew this is where I need to be, or they create little rooms. It would sound so much better. Anyway, Correct. It keeps it interesting. So this is a great question. In the role that you have on the show, because I got a chance to sit in that chair, everyone offers a little bit of advice, and you feature into that bit of advice on how you could help really understand how to grow your business and achieve that revenue. As a consultant yourself, as someone that is helping lots of these leaders, have you ever found yourself taking feedback that you learned from the stuff that you've learned at Smashing the Plateau and incorporated it in helping your clients?
Oh, all the time. Almost every episode, I learn one new thing that I can apply in my business, which is terrific.
Do you find that, and this is something that's interesting, do you find that you yourself have the time, because the hardest thing to do about a podcast is actually getting to listen to other podcasts hosts and other styles? Have you seen other styles or other shows or other content that you found that you listen to as a host that help to add to the value and the quality of Smashing the Plateau?
Yes, and the truth is, Lou, the longer I do this, the more I hear other podcasts that give me examples of things I don't want to do than that I do want to do. Because as a host, we develop our own style, and the more we do it and the more that we do the pieces that work for us, the less likely we are to want to try something new.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point, by the way. And I totally can understand that. Although I will tell you, I seem to be more additive, and I've tried certain things to see if it was almost like trying on a hat. Does that hat look good on me? Do I look okay with that? That's kind of the thing. I've said, hey, let's try to mix up the intros a little, or maybe even like break up the episode. I know you actually do a good job of that. You kind of like have logical breaks. But one of my favorite things, and the Thrive Loud listeners should do this, is that David takes a certain piece of a certain question and he pieces that out. And that's what he'll use as an audio promotion in social media, which is what I've actually seen. You did it just recently at the time of our recording. My episode came out on your show and I got to hear it. I thought that was such a great little teaser into the show. Was that something that you came up with, or something you picked up from?
Yeah, in your episode, actually, it just occurred to me when you used a particular word that I thought it would work well as the title for the show. And then as I was writing the teaser for social media, I thought the same word would just work. So it's not, that actually isn't something that is part of every show. It just happened to, cool. Happened to fit for what you said.
Well, look at that. You see, like something unique that comes in for every episode. I like it. So I love asking the guests on Thrive Loud this question, David, and this is an interesting one. You're a solopreneur, entrepreneur. You're a very successful podcaster. You've got a lot of great things going on every day. You went to the mailbox twice today, and it's a sunny day out there, which we were just joking about. But you on these days when you have great days, sometimes we don't have good days. When you're having trouble thriving, who or what do you turn to get back on the thriving track?
I try actually to have a conversation with somebody who I know will improve my mindset. Because one of the biggest challenges of being an entrepreneur, and I don't care whether you are a solopreneur or whether you're running a major corporation with many thousands of employees, the very top position in an organization is extremely lonely. There are things that you are not going to feel comfortable sharing with almost anybody, except maybe somebody who's in the same role in another organization.
True.
Right? So it's really important to have those conversations with people that you trust and who trust you on a regular basis. And I find that sometimes I'll just wake up in the morning and my mindset is just not as positive as it should be. And I'll think about who can I reach out to today who might be willing to have a brief conversation. And maybe I don't even know what's bothering me or what's made me not as positive as I should be. But if I can have a conversation with somebody who's in the right frame of mind, it can really be helpful. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation. It could be 2-3 minutes.
Has that conversation, David, ever been an interview you've had on your podcast show?
An interview where I'm interviewing somebody else.
Well, let's put it this way. Have you ever had a situation, it may have had an off day and you had your interviews up and it turned out that the conversation that you ended up having that got you back on the thriving track actually was one of the interviews that you did for your show?
Yeah, actually what I find happens quite frequently because hosting a show requires a lot of focus, as I'm sure you know, Lou. And I'm pretty good at tuning everything else out and focusing on the interaction with the guest. And I find that I generally will leave an episode way more upbeat than I may have been at the beginning. Even though I try to be as upbeat as possible before I start, I find it's almost always more upbeat at the end.
Yeah. There's a fellow podcast host and a good friend of mine, Julianne Sullivan, who has two shows as well. But I know you have more. You've had this show and you have two shows a week, which is enough. She actually has two programs running on her shows, and I loved what she said to me one time. And she says, literally, the podcasting is her favorite thing because not only is she energized by every time the conversation's over, she's inspired by something new every single time. And I guess that goes to what you were saying about the loving to meet people. And that maybe there's something in connecting with another individual on the air, or, on a podcast show, in person, at a conference, that drives us and moves us forward. And I always think of that, and I can totally agree with the seat that we sit in, but also that it does, that a good conversation from a peer is really energizing, because I think sometimes there's a little bit of feeling the pain with each other. We both are in the same boat, and there's also the moment of getting someone to, who's also on their game that can help uplift you.
That's totally correct. Totally correct.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we're in agreement. David and I very much alike here. And so let's talk about some fun things here. Things that you love to do when you're not focused on work and not focused on the show. Things that are personal, that our Thrive Lab community learn a little bit about you that you really love, that kind of gets you excited when you're not working.
Great question. Well, spending time with my family, spending time with friends. I have a pretty big social circle, so there's a lot of personal interaction. I live in New York. There's always a lot of stuff to do in New York. So theater, museums, just walking around the city is really invigorating. I bike, I run. I find biking around the city gives you a totally different perspective than walking. And in the last number of years, it's become more prevalent for people to bike, and now there are special bike lanes, which it didn't used to be, so it's easier to do. Those are some of the things that I spend my time doing.
I like this because David's like, all right, I'm done. I got it. You fit into my tagline for the show, which you'll hear at the very end, just right to the point and getting to what you need to. David, one thing that I've been curious about is, with this many episodes and you keep doing 2 shows a week, where do you want it to head to? You want it to keep going? You want it to keep running onward? Obviously, this is a lot of episodes out there. It's a very successful show. People like listening to it. What's your big goal or BHAG for the show, and how it relates to your business as well?
To be honest with you, Lou, I'm letting the show evolve based on what people seem to want, and as well as what I'm comfortable doing. Frankly, I also love podcasting, and I would do more of it if I could. But as you know, podcasting itself doesn't generally pay the bills. There are other things that pay the bills. So I'd be happy for there to be even more episodes than we're producing right now. And for the show to, if we're hearing that people want the show to go in a particular direction, or there are certain kinds of questions that listeners would like to hear me ask guests, or they're looking for certain kinds of guests, I'd be happy to explore that as well.
Let's dive to that as well, so you can provide this. This is one of the part where I can allow you give all the plugs and places where people can reach out and how they could reach either you about Smashing the Plateau or your business as well, so people can learn more about you. Let's just get that part out of the administrative way right now.
So they can go to smashingtheplateau.com, which is our main site for everything. There is a link on there to be able to schedule a time to speak with me if that's something you're interested in doing. Our contact information is on there as well. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Facebook. So those links work as well.
Great. And as it relates to your business as well, and trying to reach to you specifically, best ways that people can engage with you, helping to do your business. Obviously, that's the podcast links from there, but anything else, other places to find you, or what's, because I know you have other websites as well.
Right. So actually, there's one that I forgot to mention, which is an underutilized method of communication in this day and age, which is the good old-fashioned telephone.
Yeah.
212-731-0770. That's our main number. And the phone gets answered by a live person 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Eastern time. So feel free to call, and you can schedule a time to speak with me there as well. Another site that we have is for our program Best Network for Solopreneurs. And you can find that by going to smashingtheplateau.com/best network. And there's some information about that particular program. It's about developing recurring revenue for solopreneurs.
Well, I'm going to just go quickly here before we head down the wrap up here for our show, David. This is true. And I know there's a generational component to speaking on the phone. I actually gave a presentation up at a university not too long ago. And we talk about, I did a show of hands. How many phone conversations do people have a day? And this is with people who obviously, quote unquote, have a smartphone in their hand. And amazingly, in a group of about 300 people in the room, there were something close to 95% of the people in the room only had one phone call per day. I mean, everything was literally like, there was no chance if you had 2 or 3, but one phone call a day was the majority of the room. Do you think that the new generation, or the way we do business, I can't say that things can be done faster by texting and emailing, but there is, to your point, this old-fashioned way of connecting and communicating that is very valuable. Maybe to the Thrive Loud community here a little bit about the benefit of connecting this way, and specifically as it relates to business, because I think someone like yourself would actually be able to provide a really good take on this. So I hand the ball over to you on your opinion on this matter.
Yeah, there's a really simple answer to this, which is one of the biggest problems that I see with every client is insufficient communication. And by insufficient communication, it's more than likely to involve the sharing of emotions with communication, or insufficient is the lack of sharing of emotions with communication. If a text or an email goes back and forth more than twice around the same subject with the same people, it's time to use some kind of at least audio mechanism to communicate, whether it's phone or audio FaceTime or audio Skype or whatever it is. At a minimum, do something that's audio and live so that you can have some back and forth and share some emotions. For some things, video is even better. Now it's so easy to have live video communications when you need it. That's also a great tool. And frankly, the other piece that people miss way too often is there's certain things that you really need to be face-to-face to talk about.
Yeah.
And don't overlook that.
I couldn't agree more, and I figured it would come out very powerfully from you as a great communicator here. David Shriner-Cahn, signature question here at Thrive Loud. Your all-time favorite movie? And why? Because there's a lot of movies out there, and I do love the movie. I want to hear how it connects to you.
You know what? I don't even know. I just know that I'll confess, Lou, that I have a pretty good memory for all kinds of weird things. I'm really bad at remembering movies. For some reason, I'll go see something that's a great movie, and 2 weeks later, I'm like clueless as to what went on. Wizard of Oz, for some reason, maybe because I saw it a lot when I was a kid. First of all, it's a great story. It has all the elements of a great story, and I like to remember all of those details. Many, many years later. I mean, I used to see it a lot when my kids were young. You know, back in the days when we had VHS tapes. For those who remember those things. That was one of the ones we had that got worn out, but it's a great story.
It's a great story. I just brought back a memory that I actually had the audio recorded LP for the Wizard of Oz movie soundtrack as well. And I used to, as a single digit little kid, used to play it on a big record player to listen to it, and would hear all the songs from, the music, the songs, the story. And it was just, one of those fun memories that I think we always have. And I still think CBS still airs it once a year, and going on
as they should.
As they should, which is a great way to bring this home. Well, on the way to home, because there is no place like home, David Shriner-Cahn, thanks so much for coming on Thrive Loud today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Lou.
And to all the Thrive Loud listeners out there, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.